It feels amazing to be back at UMass. I'm a UMass alum. Yeah. Graduated in 1990. Whoa, hey, easy up, easy. But for the purposes of full disclosure, I was supposed to graduate in 1989. But you know, when 1989 rolled along, I wasn't ready yet. But here I get to come back and I get to do a TED Talk. And I'm really honored because I remember the first TED Talk that I saw. It was in 2006. A man by the name of Ken Robinson talked about creativity. And I was blown away. And I was like, oh man, I love TED. But I can't believe how I don't even think TED himself could have ever imagined just how huge these conferences were going to be and how powerful they were going to be. But it's awesome to be here. And first, a big shout out to the students all wearing black that gave all of their time to put this on today. Shout out to the students. Some of them left here last night at like 3 in the morning. They got here at 5 in the morning. And when I was at UMass, I couldn't even get to an 8 o'clock class on time. So I'm really honored to be here. I want to keep things simple. And I want to share wisdom that I've been able to, privileged enough to learn along the way, because I get to work with kids. And I get to work with kids whose lives have been heartbreakingly difficult. And what I've learned from them is that they're superheroes. They have superpowers. And if we look at them closely and we learn from them, it can transform our lives. So I want to introduce you to a superhero. This little boy right here. Just share with you a little story. This is a classroom in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. This is after the earthquake. And these are a group of kids that were right outside of Port-au-Prince in a tent city. And I got a chance to come and visit their classroom. And I got there, and I love kids. So when I see them, I just want to get down on their level, and I just got to give them like a fist bump or something. You know, it just makes me feel good to get down and give a fist bump to a kid. And so kids were kind of excited to see me. And, you know, they had a nickname for me right away. They were saying, Blanc, Blanc, which means white in Creole. And this one little boy over here, he was all geared up, like he was fired up to give me his fist bump. He was waiting in line, letting other kids go first, but he was kind of jumping out of his skin to give me that fist bump. And when 40 kids come together to try to give you a fist bump, it creates chaos in the classroom. And so the teacher was very concerned, so she stood up and she told everyone, please, boys and girls, put your bodies in your chairs. And he listened. He was disappointed, but he listened. He sat down. He looked kind of defeated for a minute. Then he made eye contact with me. And he looked. He kind of was like lost in thought. And then he smiled and he went. And he hopped his chair all the way over and gave me a fist bump. And I said, man, that is a superhero. Those are superpowers. Imagine having so much joy, so much desire for connection, so much discipline to play by the rules but figure out how much you can stretch them, and not allowing anything to rob you of an opportunity to engage, to connect, and to explore. That's the magic of playfulness. So I want to share some of these lessons and have a couple, because I know these TED Talks, they go fast. And I just really want to make one point. And it's kind of about this idea of how do we live playfully. And so my message is, number one, don't work hard. Thank you very much. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. And instead, go out and play. Now, I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood here. When I say don't work hard, I'm not talking about what you decide to do. Thank God we have people that are looking to cure AIDS. Thank God we have doctors and scientists looking for discoveries that are going to allow us to live healthy and strong lives. Thank God we have educators and teachers that put everything in their heart into their work. I'm not talking about what you do. I'm talking about the spirit and intention of how you do everything that you do. Play is not reserved for the sandbox. It's not reserved for flip cup or beer pong or frisbee golf. Play is a spirit in which you bring to everything that you do. So I want to break down playfulness into 4 very simple domains that I think no matter what we do in life, they're important that we understand. Domain number 1 of playfulness is this idea of active engagement. Can we be here now? It's hard. How many folks, show of hands, sometimes have a hard time being fully present in the moment without thinking about what happened yesterday, without worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, but being here now? One of the most heartbreaking tragedies about traumatic stress exposure for young children is it robs them of being here now. Because when you're overwhelmed by trauma, you're frightened and overwhelmed by things that happened in the past, and you're worried about what might happen tomorrow, so you miss this moment. You know, I want to share a little story with you. My wife is a yogi, and she's great. You know, she's really flexible, and she's awesome. Hi, honey, I love you so much. And I want to try to be around my wife as much as possible because I'm married way out of my league, and I know that. So I go to yoga class with her. And she didn't tell me that the yoga class, I mean, I didn't listen, maybe she told me, but that it was like a hot yoga. And the class is like 110 degrees in the room. And everyone except me in the class knows what they're doing. And the class is like an hour and 20 minutes long. And so I get into the class, and like during the warm-up, I feel like I might die. And I'm like, you know, trying to do some pose like this. And all I can do is stare at the clock. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I got an hour and 18 minutes. And the teacher recognizes this, and she looks at me and she said, Steve, be here now. Because if you're not here, you're nowhere. And I was like, ooh, wow, that's big. And I had an epiphany. At that moment, I realized I would actually much rather be nowhere than in that freaking yoga class. That was my realization. That I actually couldn't be here now. Because being here now was too difficult and too painful. And I thought to myself, man, I hate yoga. And then I kind of realized, I don't hate yoga. Just wasn't ready to be there now. So the next time I went to class, I went to a class with the room temperature. And I went to a class for beginners. And I went to a class that had extra instructors that could help me learn the postures. And they had blocks and straps and things that could help me do this. And I realized that sometimes for us, for children, especially been exposed to trauma, being here now is too difficult. And so we have to figure out a couple things. Number 1, what are we going to do to change so we can tolerate being uncomfortable? Because being here now is uncomfortable sometimes. And what are we going to do to help change the environment so that being here now isn't too difficult? Because if it's constantly a struggle, it's exhausting. And there's things that we can do to tweak it. So that's number 1. We can reach our playfulness potential if we, 1, can be here now. Number 2 is this idea of internal control. Internal control is this feeling like, I got this. You know what I mean? It's that vibe like, yeah, man, I am good. I am strong. I am worthy. I am capable. And I am a complete masterpiece. You know, it was funny. I gave a presentation once, and I was real excited. My dad was there. And one of the women in the audience liked the presentation a lot. And she was like, Steve, that was awesome. You were 1 in a million. You are just 1 in a million. She said it like 4 times. I was feeling good about myself. Unfortunately, my dad is a mathematician. So I was like, Dad, you hear that? Your boy, 1 in a million. And he said, before you get a swelled head, that just means there's 8 more people just like you in New York City alone. We're not 1 in a million. No one in this audience is 1 in a million. We're 1 in like a million, billion, trillion, gazillion. Obviously, I was not a math major. I don't know the word. I think like 1 in an infinity. Would that work? Anyone a scientist? Help me, please. That work? And kids need to believe that because it's true. You know, when my son was little, I took him to a really nice home. And they did a fundraiser for our organization. I told him, he was 10. I call him Mook. I was like, Mook, don't touch anything while you're here because this is a very wealthy family. And they don't have kids. And so all the stuff in the house is breakable. And it looked like a museum. My son was like, oh, Dad, I got it. Don't worry about it. I'm good. 2 seconds later, I hear a crash. And I run out, and there is just shards of fine china, plaster, whatever it was. It wasn't recognizable. And I was hoping that the hostess of the party was going to say, like, don't worry, it's okay. But she wasn't saying that. Instead, she was like in tears, kind of. And I was like, oh, God. Oh. And I looked at my son like, Mook, do something. And he walked up to the woman, and he put his arm around her. He's a sweet kid, and he's like, don't worry about it, lady. I'm fine. And after a little while, my boy got it right. That's what's important. He's fine. We sometimes worry about destroying something that maybe can be rebuilt, but we sometimes don't think hard enough of what it's like to destroy the spirit of a child. The spirit of a child, a kid who's exuberant and who's curious and who's rambunctious and who's inquisitive, all the things that we say we admire in children. Yet we got to realize sometimes, and I know all the parents here will know, sometimes those things can kind of be a pain in the ass, especially when we're tired. And so we got to remember, we got to honor and celebrate the exuberance of our superheroes. The third piece, it's real important, is this idea of social connection. We are herd animals as people. We need to love and to be loved. You know, a lot of children who don't make it at school, and I forget the man who coined this term, his name, I think it's a Dr. Ireland. We say, we don't have a lot of kids with attention deficit disorder. We have kids with affection deficit disorder. They don't feel loved. They don't feel valued. And the quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to the quality of our relationships. We need each other. It's empty without love, without connection. There was a little story when I was in Haiti after the earthquake, and I was there with a medical team just doing some reconnaissance work. And someone there knew that I played with children and that I worked with children. He said, hey, we got a group of kids whose parents are getting triage. And it's in this village. It was hit really hard. Would you be willing to play with some of the kids while their parents are waiting for treatment? And I said, well, it's just me alone. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Like, how many kids are we talking? I said, about 10 kids are healthy enough in this community to play. Other kids are hungry, they're thirsty, they need medical treatment. So we went out, and I brought a parachute, and sure, we started to play with a group of kids. Well, within about 5 minutes, we had to get rid of the parachute because everybody wanted to play. They all wanted to play because the drive for connection and to be part of something is equally as primal as the drive to eat and drink. And a lack of connection, just like a lack of water, will destroy us. And part of playfulness is to be connected. The last piece is this idea of joyfulness. The sun never stops shining. Even when it rains, the sun is there, and our joy, that's our enduring sense of positivity. I think about this little boy playing right field in baseball, the happiest kid in the field. And his father asked me, he was so excited, father asked him, son, you having a good time? He's like, Dad, I love this. This is the best day of my life. And the father said, cool, what's the score? Little boy's like, 25-0, Dad, isn't that amazing? And the father's like, wow, you're winning 25-0? Little boy said, oh, no, we're losing 25-0. And the father said, well, what are you so happy about? And little boy said, we haven't even been up yet. And I thought about that story, and I thought, wow, this is a cocky kid, thinks he's going to score 26 runs when he gets up. And I realized I missed the whole point. What he's so happy about? Maybe he could have said, Dad, I got 2 legs and I can stand. I got a father who loves me, comes to my baseball games. The grass is green, Dad. I got a baseball glove. I have friends. I'm alive. There are always flowers for those who choose to see them, and there are always opportunities to focus on what's right. When we put these together, when we are engaged in a way where we feel empowered, at peace, we feel joyful and connected, we are not working, we are playing. And my wish for all of us is that we never stop playing. Thank you all.